Okay, Sterling, it's 3, 2, 1. Okay, are you rolling?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, we have like a new film person today. We're dealing with Sterling from Del Oro High School, and sometimes we just don't explain things real well. So I think, I'm not sure if this video is going to turn out. But anyhow, hey, this is Al Angelo from A Plus Racing. I'm bringing you a video on how to get your Miata up there in the front where the trophies are at. All right, so today I'm going to talk about clutches. All right, I'm going to tell you what I use, why I use it, and how it kind of goes together, and a little bit about how the clutch works. Okay, so and this works for both a 1.6 and a 1.8, or actually any car that you put in a clutch in. I don't care if it's a Camaro or, Ford Mustang. It doesn't matter. They're all kind of the same. All right, so let's start off with the flywheel. So come on closer, Sterling. Okay, so I have two flywheels here. This is a flywheel out of a 1.8, and this is a flywheel out of a 1.6. And obviously they look quite different. And I will say this. Get in closer. There you go. Okay, I will say this. I have put 1.8 clutches in a 1.6 car, okay? But if you're going to do that, you have to use the entire assembly. You need the flywheel, the clutch disc, and the pressure plate. It's a little like cheating because the clutch disc on a 1.8 is bigger than a 1.6. You could see the surface here on a 1.6 is smaller than the surface here on a 1.8. But so in Spec Miata, we're really not supposed to do that. And so I kind of stay away from that practice. But they will switch. If you're going to put this on a 1.8, you can. I don't know why you would. Like I said, it's a smaller disc. The bigger disc, the more friction, the more power you can run through it without it slipping. Okay, so you can put this over here, but it's not advised. But I have done it in a case of an emergency, like we need to get the car, to this place, and we can change the flywheel later. So I have done it in cases of emergency like that. All right, these two flywheels have the pilot bearing in them, which is right here. So I can see this bearing is right here, and this is where the end of the transmission is going to fit in there like that. Okay, and that's an important part. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So they both have the pilot bearing. This big teeth out here on the outside, that's where the starter engages to turn the flywheel. And this flywheel is bolted to the back of the crankshaft. So these 6 bolts back here bolt this to the back of the crank. This is the starter ring gear. The starter engaged in this gear. It spins this. Hopefully your car starts, and then the starter gear comes back when you let the key off. So that's what that's for, in case you didn't know. These are pretty heavy. They do make lighter ones. We're not allowed to use the lighter ones in Spec Miata. It's against the rules. It causes the car to rev a little faster. So they are kind of nice. I've had a couple of them on my street cars, and they're kind of cool. They're kind of expensive, though. All right, so you can get a light and flywheel. We have to use the stock ones, all right? Okay, so that's the flywheel. All right, the next part that bolts to the flywheel is called the pressure plate, okay? And so the pressure plate is actually what's going to make the force on the clutch disc. So the more force we have on the clutch disc sandwiching the disc in between the flywheel and the pressure plate, then the more power we can run through the engine. So that's why they make all these different stages of clutches, a stock and a stage 1, a stage 2, stage 3, and all and so forth. And so it depends on how much force they're putting on the clutch disc itself. So this is the pressure plate, and it merely bolts onto the top of here. Okay, and this is a high performance ACT clutch, and this is a stock one. All right, so usually the ACT ones, they're well, the high performance ones are usually painted yellow. They're kind of nice, and the stock one, well, it doesn't look as fancy. All right, and then and we're going to come back to this. Okay, and then over here we have the clutch disc. So the clutch disc actually is the part that gets sandwiched in between the flywheel and the pressure plate. All right, so this is the clutch disc, and there are several types of clutch discs. And so I guess we'll just start off with this right now. Okay, what do I use in my Spec Miatas? The stock clutch, okay? It's 100, at most we got cars that put out maybe 135 horsepower, and the stock clutch is more than happy to handle that kind of power, if you want to call it power. So I usually just use whatever stock disc. I buy a kit. the clutch kit, and the kit will come with the pressure plate, the clutch disc. Oh, I don't have one here. A throwout bearing, a pilot bearing, and a clutch tool. Okay, and so that's what the clutch kit will come in. Like I said, I'm missing the throwout bearing. Pretend that there's the throwout bearing right here. Okay, and so that's the clutch kit. I usually get them from Mazda. If you're a racer and you get sponsored by Mazda, they give you a break on the parts. I usually buy the kit. Sometimes I just buy the kit at our local parts store here in Auburn, California. I use O'Reilly's, and I see Mindy down there. She always gives me the best price, and I just buy the clutch kit from her. And like I said, it'll come with all these pieces, including the throwout bearing. I should have thought about bringing a throwout bearing in here. All right, and so I just used the stock disc. There are problems with these, okay? With these, I know you guys like these and they're cool and all, but here's the problem, is that they're really grabby. So this clutch disc right here, this Racing 4-puck, this is either engaged or disengaged. That's all there is. There's no slipping this on a hill. You definitely, it's almost impossible to drive one of these on the street, okay? So, and the other thing I don't like about these is that they're very hard on the transmission and the differential, okay? So what basically ends up happening is when you run this clutch disc, it doesn't have any give at all right? This is either engaged or disengaged. And when it's engaged, it's a very harsh engagement, okay? And, you know, when I was 16 years old, I liked that kind of stuff. Now that I'm 2 years older than that, I don't like it, all right? So, and like I said, it eats up transmissions, okay? And what it does is it starts beating up my synchronizers in the transmission. And I've seen them break ring and pinion gears. Will chip a tooth off because of these clutches. So, you know, I don't usually use these, and I have a bunch of them, a whole bunch of them. I buy a car and it's got one in, I pull it out, I put the stock clutch in. So there are different phases though. So if I look at this clutch disc here, which I said has absolutely no give whatsoever, and then I look at this one right here, okay, I can see that this one has springs here. So what those springs are for, just like the stock clutch has, is those springs are to cushion the shift. So when you put it in gear, it cushions it a little bit, okay? So this one has absolutely no cushion at all. This is a 4-puck that has some cushion to it, so it has a little give to it. The other thing the stock clutch uses is in between the friction on this side and the friction on this side. If you can get in really tight, Sterling, there's a little Wavo spring in there. So that helps cushion it as well. But if we look at the race clutch, it is just riveted right on, and there's no Wavo in there. So this is extremely rigid clutch disc. This one's a little better. You know, it's got some springs in there to try to make it not as bad. Okay, so you might be able to get away with this clutch on the street, but I don't know. I just stick with these ones. And then this one is a little different. It's kind of unique in that it doesn't have any springs, but it's still using the old friction material, which is basically asbestos. You're not supposed to eat it. I don't see any Wavo in here. So this is a little bit of a high performance clutch as well, but instead of using this very metallic-y material here, it kind of uses the same friction material as the stock one. And then this one here, you know, this is a 6-puck sprung disc. So this one's a little more forgiving as well. Okay, so, you know, when it all comes down to it, I just use the stock ones. They last a really long time, and I don't have any problems with them. You know, every customer can drive it. If it's their first time driving a stick or they're an experienced race car driver, they never complain about the clutch, all right? And it's a lot cheaper too. These racing setups here, they could be several $100s or more. You know, this thing here right now, 2024, maybe 150 bucks, okay? And I'm rolling on an all new clutch with new bearings, okay? So this is kind of the way that I roll on everything. Now, I'm going to show you this one. So if you look at this side, you can see this clutch is in pretty good shape. And the way I tell is when I can still see that there are lines going across here, it's in good shape. If you look at this one, they're very faint. That tells me this clutch disc is really worn out. And the rivets are very close to the edge. So this clutch is in really good shape. It's a stock clutch. It's sprung. You can tell it's fairly brand new. But if you look at this side, okay, all the clutch material is gone. So what happened here? All right. So I've seen this before. Okay. I've done this before. So don't tell my parents, okay? But when I was about 17 years old, we had a little Datsun B210, and they had just had a new clutch put in it, and I wanted to take it out and try it out. So I took it down our road that we lived on. I got to about 80 miles an hour, and I put the thing in second, and I let the clutch out, and it just coasted, made a big pop, and it just coasted. I had to walk home. So I told my parents, I go, yeah, the car broke down. It's at the bottom of the hill. There's something wrong with the clutch. So they towed it back to the shop that did the clutch, and they went ahead and pulled the transmission out, and I went over there to look at it to see what had happened. And is the exact same thing, just like this. And all the clutch material was all broken up and sitting in the bell housing. And he says, wow, I think we must have had a defective clutch and that we put in there. So we're going to go ahead and fix it for free. Now, when customers come back to me, renting the car and go, yeah, I was just driving along and it went into neutral, and I pull it out and it's like this. It's got nothing on one side and it looks like brand new on the other. I charge them for it, okay? Because I know what they did. And then I tell them, I know what you did. You dropped the thing down into a low gear and you let the clutch out too fast and it tore all my friction material off. So this is what happens, all right? So that's how I know what goes on with that. But if you can see, this was a fairly new clutch. Even the date on it, I think it said 6/5 of 22. It's not that old, and it's been sitting in the back room for probably a couple of years anyways. All right, so let's move back over this way. Okay, so this is the pilot bearing. So this will come with the kit, and this is the end of the input shaft here, and it fits into this like this. It is very common for this to go bad, all right? And what this clutch is supposed to do is, being that this piece here is splined here, okay? And this is sitting in here like this, okay? And then it's resting in the pilot bearing. I can probably get the pilot bearing there, okay? And then this is over this whole thing. So what we're doing is we're engaging and disengaging this clutch disc. Oh, I got it all stuck in there. This clutch disc from this part that's bolted to the engine. So we don't want any power going in through here while we're shifting the gears. So what we do is we release the pressure with this pressure plate. So this pressure plate, when it is when your foot's off the clutch, it is sandwiching this whole thing together here. Put it on the right way. It's sandwiching this whole thing together right here, and so that we can drive the car. And then when we push the clutch in, it allows the engine to spin without having to spin the clutch disc. So the disc just slides on here. So that's the whole idea. So I have seen it where in many cases this bearing goes bad. Usually it starts making a bunch of weird sounds, like it starts growling. Maybe the car doesn't want to go into gear really easy. You have it in neutral, but the car's still trying to crawl forward or something like that. That's because this is welding itself to the end of this. And when it does that, when this bearing goes bad, then the clutch doesn't work. So I usually check them by sticking my finger in here, pushing down and turning. And I push down and turn. Now these two feel pretty smooth. I could just punch it out and reuse it. But this one, you probably can't hear it, but it's really grinding. So I put my finger in here, I put pressure on it, and I can feel it. This one's bad. It's grinding really bad. So the bearing is shot. I would definitely not put this back into another car. Okay, so but these are cheap. They're like $10. So it's a good idea to put these in. Sometimes I see it fall out. It usually falls out when they're pulling the transmission. So you're pulling the transmission hangs out, and it kind of it does this thing right towards the end, and then it just pops it out. And then this is laying down here. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's a good thing we did the clutch. Well, it probably didn't fall out because you'll all be beating around in here, but it probably fell out when you pulled it out. So I can tell when we've dropped the transmission at a steep angle and this is falling out, okay? And this is nothing more than taking a socket that size, pound it out, put the new one on there and tap it back in. It's supposed to be flush like this one. This one's too far down, okay? So that's the trick on the pilot shaft, all right? And this clutch tool, these come with the kit. They're nice to have, always hang on to it, but it's really nice when you can have one of these. So this is the transmission right here. This is a Miata transmission, and this is this part right here. So this is supposed to simulate this, all right? So this is a really nice clutch alignment tool that we use when we put the clutch together. So the way that I would do it is I would put the clutch disc on. I want to make sure the clutch disc is facing in the right direction. Sometimes they say on it, you know, flywheel side or engine side or, you know, something like that. They'll say that on there. If it doesn't, because this could go like this or it could go like this. All right. So if it doesn't say, know that the part that has the springs all sitting on it, it fits away from the engine. So it sits like this, okay? So let's get one. Give me a 1/6. All right. So if this goes like this, okay, and then this might be a 1/8. This goes on here like this, and it'll sit down. This is a 1/8. And then you take your clutch alignment tool and you put it all the way through into the pilot bearing, and then you go ahead and gradually tighten these bolts. And I think when you get done, I kind of crisscross, and then I torque them to about 21 foot-pounds when I'm done. And then you pull this out, and then you can put it in. If you don't have a clutch alignment tool, you still can do it. It's just a little bit more tricky, but since you subscribe, well, if you subscribe to the channel, then go ahead and just hang tight here for a minute and I'll show you the trick. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, thanks for watching and have a nice day. All right, so this is 1/8. That'll work. Yeah, what happened to our 1/8? Our 1/8 disc. There we go. Okay. All right. So what I can do is I will. Oh, these are all 1/6s. That one's worse. Okay. So what I'll do, if I don't have a clutch alignment tool, this clutch disc is just going to fall to the bottom. Okay. So it's going to sit like that. Can you get that straight on, Sterling? It's going to sit down there like that. Okay. So the disc can float in there. I can move the disc around, you know, with my finger. So what I do, if I don't have a clutch alignment tool, is I stick my fingers in these holes right here, and I feel this edge, and I feel where the clutch disc is in relationship to the edge. So the clutch disc is sitting like this, and I stick my hand in here, and I can feel the edge of the clutch disc there, but I come to this side, and I can't. So then I know I need to move the clutch disc over. And what I do with my fingers is I feel how far the clutch disc is from the edge of the pressure plate all the way around. And then I can get it centered up just by feeling the edge, okay? And then when it feels the same all the way around, I snug it all down, okay? And then that'll work without a clutch alignment tool. But it does help to have a clutch alignment tool. Get one, don't ever throw it away, hang on to it, and that way you have it. Okay, I think I've covered a lot of ground here. Once again, if you're building a turbo Miata, which we don't because we're not allowed to in Spec Miata, but if you're building something that's got some power, then yeah, you're probably going to need the ACT clutch. You'll probably burn up that stocker, all right? So you'll end up having to pony money. If you're just doing a little Friday, Saturday night street war, you know, on a fairly stock Miata, or you're running Spec Miata, the stock clutch works just fine. I have no problem using a stock clutch. Hey, I want to thank you for watching my channel, and I appreciate you guys subscribing and asking questions, and I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.